Your assumption's off. It's trivial once you see the geometry.
That's brilliant.
You know, there are moments in life that hit you like a freight train, where everything you thought you knew about fairness and smarts just gets flipped upside down. And this one time at the Pacific Northwest Math Symposium up in Seattle, that's exactly what happened to this kid named Jamal Thompson, a 20-year-old black guy from a tiny community college down in Tacoma, who walked into a room full of Ivy League hotshots and turned the whole place on its head. Picture this: Dr. Harold Whitaker, this big-shot professor with a shelf full of awards and an ego to match, spots Jamal slouching in the back row in his beat-up hoodie and scuffed sneakers, and decides right then and there to make an example out of him, thinking, "Oh, this'll be easy, just another underdog to crush under the weight of real academia." But Whitaker had no clue he was about to get schooled by the very student he tried to humiliate. And man, the fallout from that day still gives me chills when I think about it. Like watching a movie where the villain's plan backfires so spectacularly it changes everyone's life forever. It all started on a rainy Saturday morning at Evergreen State College, the kind of drizzly Northwest weather that makes you want to stay in bed. But Jamal, he wasn't about to miss this. He'd been up all night loading crates at the warehouse job that paid his bills, his hands still sore from the heavy lifting, but his mind was buzzing with equations he'd scribbled on old receipts during his breaks. See, Jamal wasn't your typical math whiz kid with tutors and fancy prep schools. No, he grew up in a cramped apartment with his mom and little sister, where books from the public library were his escape, and late-night YouTube videos on calculus were his secret weapon against a world that kept telling him he didn't belong in places like this. The symposium was this huge deal, drawing undergrads from places like UW, Stanford, even some fly-ins from MIT, all vying for scholarships that could launch them into the big leagues, full rides, research grants worth tens of thousands, the works, and it was live-streamed too, starting with maybe 10,000 viewers glued to their screens, hungry for that intellectual drama. Whitaker, at 55, was the king of the hill here, a guy who'd cracked some theorem back in the 90s that nobody else could touch, written books that every math major dreaded but had to read, and now he sat on the judges' panel like a gatekeeper, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses and scanning the crowd with that smug look, the one that said, "I decide who gets to shine." He'd built his career on weeding out the unprepared, as he called them, but deep down, I think it was more about control, about keeping the club exclusive. Especially after years of seeing kids from privileged backgrounds sail through while folks like Jamal got overlooked. Whitaker had his own scars, maybe from being passed over early in his career by flashier names, and that bitterness turned into this quiet war against anyone who didn't fit the mold. When Jamal shuffled in late, backpack slung over one shoulder, whispering apologies as he squeezed into a back seat, Whitaker's eyes locked on him like a hawk spotting prey, the faded Tacoma Community College sweatshirt, the basic calculator poking out of his pocket. It all screamed outsider to a guy like Whitaker, who probably figured community colleges were just babysitting services for dreamers who couldn't hack the real thing. The room went quiet as Whitaker leaned into the mic, his voice dripping with that fake politeness professors use when they're about to twist the knife. "Excuse me, young man in the back, are you sure you're in the right auditorium? The introductory algebra workshop is down the hall, I believe." Laughter rippled through the crowd, these polished students from top schools chuckling behind their laptops. Phones already out recording what they thought would be a quick viral embarrassment. The live stream chat lit up with emojis and snarky comments like, "Oof, wrong room, buddy," or "This is gonna hurt." Jamal felt that heat rising in his chest, the familiar sting of being sized up and dismissed because of how he looked, where he came from, but he didn't snap, didn't make a scene. Instead, he just pulled out his crumpled registration email, held it high, and said steady as a rock, "Jamal Thompson, confirmed participant. I think I'm right where I belong, sir." Whitaker's smile faltered just a bit, but he recovered quick, waving it off like it was no big deal, though inside, I bet that irked him, this kid not crumbling under the spotlight. As the warm-up problems hit the desks, that's when things started to shift. While everyone else dove in with their graphing calculators beeping away, Jamal just stared at the paper for a minute, his mind mapping out shortcuts he'd invented on his own, ways to slice through the complexity that his fancy-pants competitors never dreamed of because they'd been spoon-fed the long way around. Sophie Ramirez, This sharp junior from UW, sitting a few rows up, glanced back and did a double take at his work where she needed a page of scribbles. Jamal had it down in 3 clean lines, using some geometric twist that made the answer pop like it was obvious all along. She whispered to her friend, "That's not how they teach it in class. How's he doing that?" Whitaker noticed the buzz too, his jaw tightening as he dismissed it in his head shortcuts. Tricks, no real depth, he thought. Probably learned from some online hack, not the rigorous foundation that true mathematicians built their empires on. But Jamal, he felt that undercurrent of doubt from the room. It fueled him, reminded him of all those nights alone in the library, proving to himself that smarts didn't come with a price tag or a pedigree. The elimination round kicked off, and Whitaker couldn't resist. He stood up, all dramatic, announcing they'd have volunteers tackle problems on the big whiteboard up front, his eyes drilling into Jamal like lasers. "Let's start with our enthusiastic visitor from Tacoma," he said, the word enthusiastic, laced with sarcasm that made the audience snicker again. "Come on up, Mr. Thompson, show us what you've got." The room hushed, phones poised, live stream jumping to 30,000 viewers now. Everyone expecting a train wreck. Sophie held her breath. Dr. Maria Lopez, the co-judge who'd fought her way up from a similar rough start, shot Whitaker a warning glance, knowing this was less about math and more about power. Jamal walked up slow, heart pounding but steady, feeling the weight of not just his dreams, but every kid like him who'd been told to stay in their lane. This wasn't just a problem on a board, it was a fight for respect. Whitaker scribbled out what looked like a straightforward integral, but it was a trap, buried with twists from advanced topology that no community college syllabus touched. 10 minutes, no rush, he said with that condescending grin, leaning back like he'd already won. Jamal stared at it, the numbers blurring for a second under the lights, doubts creeping in. What if he froze? What if this proved them all right? But then it clicked, like a lock tumbling open. He grabbed the marker, and instead of grinding through the usual steps, he sketched a quick diagram, curves interlocking in a way that simplified the whole mess. "See, the standard way takes forever with substitutions," he explained casually, his voice gaining strength. "But if you look at it geometrically, the symmetry jumps out, cuts it down to 4 steps, clean and simple." The room murmured, Sophie's eyes widening as she realized this wasn't luck. Then Jamal paused, furrowed his brow. "Hold on, Professor, there's a glitch here in the coefficient. It's set up to diverge at infinity. Makes the whole thing unsolvable as is." Whitaker's face flushed. He fumbled with his notes, checking and rechecking while the audience waited, breath held, and yeah, Jamal was spot on. A tiny slip Whitaker had made copying from his own work. Applause broke out, scattered at first then swelling, the live stream exploding with "Whoa, he caught that," and hashtags like Underdog math starting to trend. Whitaker muttered something about a fortunate spot, but you could see the crack in his armor. This wasn't just embarrassing, it threatened his whole worldview, where guys like him held the keys and outsiders like Jamal were supposed to beg for scraps. Deep down, Whitaker's drive came from his own insecurities, years of fighting for recognition in a field dominated by old money networks. And now this kid was exposing how fragile that superiority really was. But Whitaker wasn't done. Oh no, his pride kicked into overdrive, and he escalated, calling for graduate-level qualifiers right there on the spot. Problems meant to weed out PhD hopefuls after years of prep. "If you're so confident, let's see you handle real math," he challenged, voice edged with that mix of anger and desperation, inviting Dr. Angela Hayes from a nearby tech institute to join the panel, a stickler for protocol who'd back him up. Lopez tried to intervene. "Harold, stick to the format," but Whitaker cut her off. "He wants to play. Let's play." Jamal nodded. No backing down now, though inside he felt that not a fear these weren't library puzzles anymore. This was the deep end, and failing would crush not just him but everyone rooting for the little guy. The first problem hit the board, a beast of multivariable calculus tangled with complex analysis. Jamal approached it calm, narrating as he went. "This one's tricky if you force it into real numbers, but switch to contours, and it unfolds like a map." He solved it in half the time, his marker flying, insights pouring out that had Hayes leaning forward despite herself. The second, differential topology meets algebra. "Think of it as surfaces talking to each other," he said, reducing it to elegant basics that made grad students in the audience nod in awe. Live stream hit 60,000, clips going viral, but Whitaker doubled down, shifting tactics to gatekeeping BS, terminology quizzes, proof formats, historical citation stuff that had nothing to do with raw smarts, but everything with club membership. Jamal stumbled there, his self-taught gaps showing Hamada piece about deforming shapes without tearing, right? He'd say, spot on intuitively, but missing the fancy lingo. Hayes pounced. Imprecise, young man academia demands standards. The room's energy dipped, whispers of, maybe he's not that deep, creeping in. Whitaker smirking as he chipped away at Jamal's confidence, motivated by that fear of irrelevance, of a kid like this appending the hierarchy he'd clawed his way into. Social media fired back, though gatekeeping math, trending as folks called out the unfairness, stories flooding in from self-taught geniuses who'd been shut out for not knowing the right words. Then Whitaker went nuclear, his voice turning icy. These techniques aren't community college fare. Mr. Thompson, where exactly did you learn them? Research papers? Sounds awfully convenient. The accusation hung heavy. Cheating. Security got called. Jamal's backpack rummaged through in front of everyone, his notebook pages of midnight scribbles treated like evidence. Jamal's voice cracked. I don't cheat. I love this stuff, man, it's all I do. The humiliation burned, tears pricking his eyes as the live stream chat turned sour, doubts spreading like wildfire. Whitaker's play born from panic, seeing his own research echoed in Jamal's fresh eyes, threatening to make him obsolete. Lopez couldn't take it anymore. She stood, hand on Jamal's shoulder, her own history flashing back. The Latina prof who'd been questioned for her accent, her roots. I've been where you are, kid doubted because I didn't look the part, she said soft but firm, then turned to the room. This isn't math anymore, it's bullying. One more challenge, pure problem solving, solve it. Harold apologizes to the world. Whitaker, cornered, scrawled his masterpiece, an unsolved monster from his 2-year grind, blending fields in a knot that had stumped the best. Solve this, and I'll back your Harvard app myself, he sneered, expecting triumph. Jamal stared, the board a blur at first, doubts swirling, but then patterns emerged, his mind piecing it together like a puzzle he'd half-solved in dreams. Your convergence assumption's off here, he said, voice steadying, pointing out the flaw Whitaker had missed for months. The room gasped as he unraveled it, turning the beast into something simple, elegant. It's trivial once you see the geometry underneath. Opens up a whole family of solutions. Applause thundered, professors scribbling notes, live stream at 100,000 plus. Whitaker stared, pale, his empire crumbling. That's brilliant, he whispered, the admission pulled from him like a tooth. But wait, it got wilder. Lopez's phone buzzed mid-celebration. The National Math Foundation watching, offering Jamal a fellowship, skipping the BS degrees. Universities like Caltech and Princeton clamoring to fast-track him to PhD. His work headed for journals, youngest breakthrough in years. Whitaker approached, voice humbled. I was wrong, Jamal, profoundly wrong. You didn't just win, you taught me. Jamal shook his hand, gracious, we all got room to grow. Professor, maybe collaborate sometime? The moment froze like a movie still, prejudice bowing to talent, the auditorium erupting. 6 months on, Jamal's thriving at Princeton, his story sparking funds for community programs, inspiring kids everywhere to chase their sparks. Whitaker? He retired early, rumor has it, reevaluating his biases or maybe just licking wounds. But here's the thing that sticks with me. Was Whitaker the real villain, or just a product of a system that chews up outsiders? Did Jamal's win change academia for good, or is it still rigged against the next underdog? I mean, think about it, how many geniuses get lost because someone like Whitaker guards the gate? Drop a comment below. Have you faced gatekeeping like this? Who's right in the end, the establishment or the rebel? Share your take. Hit that like if it hit home. Subscribe for more real-life twists because stories like this remind us, brilliance shows up anywhere if we let it.